17 now. Let's call the July 6th, 2021 bid board meeting to order. We have acknowledgement of a quorum. And the first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from June 1st. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
I need a second.
Second.
I'll hear snoring.
I'm waiting. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Welcome, Jay. Jess is on vacation, I guess, this week, so
Correct.
Jay is filling in.
Happy to be here.
Do you have the financial report?
I do. You have it in your packet. Maybe the highlight on this report is the encumbrance under lights and decorations. The bulk of that is the downtown lighting project with Steiner Electric. If there's any questions about any of the items, I know we have a Steiner Electric report or that project report coming up in a second, but that's the financial report.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the update on the roof line. Looks like they got most of it done. There's a few areas that I understand need more work.
Yep, I can speak to it, but Ken, why don't you go first and I'll fill in the
Oh, yeah, I forgot you
blanks.
were involved in that.
Yeah, overall, everything went pretty well, and they were able to change nearly all the lights. I think in the scheme of things, there's about 30 that remain that need work.
30 sections or 30?
30 bulbs.
Oh, okay.
And so what I did is I approved them to go ahead on a contingency on a couple of things. One of the sections that were out, it was replacing a time clock issue, so that's about a $500 expense. And then I did ask them I gave them a go-ahead on 2 to 3 hours of additional surveillance to see if some of those other sections there's something there that for minimal cost we can take care of. And so it'll be under $1,000 based on our contingency of just under $4,000. If they can't, and then whatever they find, I thought I would bring back to the board here. And then he also directed us to the 2018 quote for replacement of sections. That was brought to the board back at that point in time. That was a $3,900 expense, and between the two, the new and that one there, it was over our contingency. So I thought it warranted discussion after Steiner has let us know what kind of things they came up with the 2 to 3 hour check on the bulbs. And so that's basically the overview. The areas where the bulbs weren't able to be replaced, again, we're just over the 237 and 239 Main Street. And the second area is a 15-foot section over the Brazen Head Bar. And so that's, I think, again, in the whole scheme of things, we're down to 30 bulbs, which is pretty good considering. Jay, anything to add there?
I think just a comment and a thank you to Steiner Electric. Comment is that it looks great downtown, and the thank you is getting the project done and doing it quickly so we can enjoy it all summer long, which I think is a benefit as well. They could have pushed it and knocked it out in October, November, and it was just nice that they were willing to do it right away, get it done in June, and the fact that we can enjoy it all summer. I think having Steiner back for the results of the findings might be a wise thing at the next meeting. So I guess with the bid board's blessing, we'll encourage Rob to come back and present that information to you as a group, and then we can talk through in some more detail and maybe have Rob point on the map where these sections are and the whys and whats of whether it's cost effective in his recommendation to pursue the replacement of those areas or not.
That sounds like a good plan to me.
I guess I would also like at that point to have some conversation as to if those lights are on my building, that I have every right to change those lights, because I still think that that's an issue, right? That we're not supposed to be touching those bulbs.
No, we can, well, we were given authority by the downtown to maintain them. The downtown owns them.
Okay.
And the downtown has the letter of understanding with the building owners. I guess if a building owner didn't want us to do anything with them, they could rescind that letter and say, hey, we're not going to allow the downtown to do this anymore, and then we would have to not touch the lights.
But you're asking, Peggy, as a building owner, if one's out, that you can just replace it?
Right? That's
Yeah.
not an issue?
I don't
Okay.
think that's an
All right,
issue.
so
I don't
would
know if
just
that's
need-
an issue, though, because, and the reason I say that is when we remodeled our building in 2007, in that memo of understanding, it says that only the downtown association can do anything with those lights. And so they paid to take the lights off of our building, and they were supposed to put them back on, but they never put them back on. So I wouldn't say that categorically without looking, we have to look into that document. Because I think there's a clause in there that only the downtown has the authorization to work on the lights.
Right, and I think the intent of that authorization is for like roofers or siding companies coming in and ripping off the lights and not putting them back, like you mentioned. The actual replacement of an out bulb because you want your building to look better, I would just do it if you can do it safely without,
That's the question.
Well, and I guess the question with that is if the bulb is out, I would think they would have done that through this
Sure.
switch out at this point. So everything that's replaced is done at this point.
Right.
but they will continue to pass as life
Yeah.
goes on. But
Right, but you're right, and I want to know like what light bulbs they're using, because I want to use the same ones to keep it looking uniform.
And Rob, when he's here next time, can share that. I know he's shared with us that he's going to have a supply of bulbs that are
Awesome.
available as well.
Okay.
And hopefully that this is the eye to the future. If what the bid board acted on in the past was this will get us through the next 5 years, and then between now and then, to be looking at the next phase of lighting downtown would be awesome, in my opinion. And I'll just add another thank you from the city standpoint to the bid board for authorizing this work, funding this work, and getting it done.
Well, and
Looks awesome.
I would hope at the next meeting, he would have maybe a rough outline of the RFP
For the future.
for the future, and then we could establish a committee to start researching it and figure out where we can come up with funding. Those of you that are very passionate about it, we can put a group together and start looking at getting donations or whatever to start doing it, once we get an idea of what it's gonna cost.
That'd be a fun project to work on. Thanks.
Any other questions on the roof lights? Thanks for the work. Jess, I think, was probably was a big part of it, and Ken, I know, was involved, so thank you for getting that done. Item 3, the bid transportation group. If anybody read the West Bend News this morning, they know that we've been meeting. There was an article on the front page talking about it. So we've had 2 meetings up to this point. The conversation has been geared around the Kunkel Engineering study that the bid paid for, I think, 5 years ago. The committee consists of myself, Tony, Jess, Larry, and Jay. We've been talking about just all aspects of what we're thinking for ideas. It's kind of a high-level conversation. There's nothing that is being left off the table. Everything is a good idea. We're researching everything from doing Wi-Fi downtown to music to new lights, new sidewalks, the entire rebuild of Main Street from Walnut Street North to Washington Street. We have a meeting scheduled this Thursday for a walkthrough. We're going to start at 7:30 in Veterans Park and just start walking through, looking at the bump outs and see what make sense or not sense in our opinion, not from an engineering standpoint, but our opinion of how can we cut out some of the bump outs, and just kind of get a better feel of what's going on down there and what's there versus what Kunkel had suggested in 2000, whatever it was, 15, 16. So that's kind of where we're at with that group. Tony, Larry, Jay, if you guys want to add anything.
I think that covered it.
So I think the next phase of this group is once we get everything kind of narrowed down, we'll bring it to the full board, give you guys kind of an idea of what we're thinking, and then from there it will go to, I'm not sure where it goes to next.
So, yeah, I would just add from a city staff standpoint that as the bid transportation group meets, we'll continue to have conversations with engineering and Doug Newman, who's here, Public Works, and others are development department that are all related to the development of downtown and what the final design looks like. If you think of 2021 this year as a preliminary design or these kind of high-level discussions, the decisions made from, or recommendations made from the transportation group and the bid board as a whole, and maybe some survey work that we're going to talk about in a second, all will bubble up into a design, a formal design that will be bid out by engineering, and a contractor will be selected to, in 2022, design the reconstruction of Main Street. And then in 2023, the timeline is still to reconstruct Main Street. So all of the businesses that are out there that are wanting to think through that timeline and properly plan for it with their respective business, that's the timeline that we're operating under right now. So process-wise, Mike, that's a great comment to make, that once the Transportation Committee is done and concurrently with the Transportation Committee's work, we'll be having conversations with Max and Doug, specifically Mark to some extent here at the city with city staff. And for example, the Highway 33 Washington Street intersection with Main Street, that roadway intersection gets brought up often. What's the future of that? And Max, in particular, our city engineer, will be having conversations with the state, the DOT, as to what can even possibly be done from a DOT regulation standpoint. So he's going to work through that. We'll concurrently meet and make recommendations, and then we'll have a design in 2022. Pretty exciting stuff.
Any questions from?
And I would say number 5 on the agenda is maybe an outcome or a related conversation to the transportation group's work.
You guys have any questions? Okay. Number 4, property owner survey. This is something that I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and it's actually kind of a two-prong survey. The first one is to talk to actual building owners, find out what they're thinking about the bid, what they think the bid is all about, what they think the bid should be doing, if they even know what the bid is about and that they're paying us tax dollars every year. And then once we get these results back, then we will do a second survey to all of the businesses within the bid. This was put together by a company called Polkel that the city used for some other stuff. They helped write the questions. They will put it all together, get it out to the building owners, hopefully get a good response back, and then give us the results. Then phase 2 will be from that, we'll create the second survey to the businesses. And then the thought process that Jess and I have talked through several times is to then have them come and give the results to the public, and we'll do an event, and I've already talked to them. They've agreed to host it. We'll do an event at the Bend and have them come and give us the results at that time of exactly what everything is. Obviously, the bid will get the results ahead of time, but we'll it's kind of get the feel of what everybody thinks we should be doing and kind of help us set the course going into the future. Talks about, I mean, the questions are all here, but it's everything from what do they think of what we're doing, what do they think of the cleanliness, what do they think of where we're allocating our money, what are their thoughts of putting money towards the reconstruction of Main Street. It's kind of it's about a 3-minute survey, so it was designed to be relatively quick, but also give us information that will help us plan for the future. Any questions, thoughts?
I just have an observation. I noticed there wasn't a comment section after each one. That's usually the most valuable information on surveys.
And I wish Jess was here because I remember
I raised that
there
point
was
and she had a response.
there was a
and-
response. There was a reason why they didn't do it, and I honestly can't tell you what it was.
As far as digesting the data.
I
it
think
was-
it's getting the data, and then how do you manage it?
It was a POCO recommendation to not have a comment section. I think it's a judgment call. The
Yeah.
bid board can certainly add one if you'd like.
We could have it at the very end.
Yeah.
Just an overall comment section, you could make
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because sometimes there's an in-between, and there's some additional clarity that there's a reason for that, so maybe if there's a comment section at the end, just somewhere to share additional insight.
We can easily add that. I honestly, it was they're the ones that said not to do it, but
And it was the clarity. I think you're right, Mike, as far as the reason why was agree, somewhat agree, disagree, and strongly agree mean something. Those 4 can be ranked against each other and produce a result. A comment of, I don't like Christmas, or that just doesn't help with a definitive giving the bid board direction for the next survey. But an overall comment section at the end would be great.
Let's do it.
So that's the other thing that I think we would like to, as a city staff, have as direction from here. Is this green light to send it out? Are these the 11 questions that are going out and we're good? You're blessing them today and directing staff to move forward? We're prepared to do so. I don't want it. I know, Mike, you said you've been talking about it for a long time. This has been on radar for the entire 5 years I've been working for the city of West Bend, and we've not had a survey yet. So we're ready for it. The process-wise, what will happen is once POCO is given the green light, we'll add in the comment section at the end, and then they will send out postcards directing building owners, so property owners, to an online survey. And then there'll be a reminder and a follow-up phone call and all that kind of fun stuff in order to try to get a high percentage of responses.
Does it require a motion?
Well, I just have one
it will, yeah.
question about the survey itself. Question number 5, it says a limited time. I think, it might be better if we said 4 years, 5 years, and then revisit it in 4 years or 5 years rather than,
Well,
we haven't quantified it.
the reason it was set as limited is because we don't know even what that project would be. And so it could be a year. It could be, so it was set to say, would you be willing to do this with kind of a sunset clause, but not knowing?
Yeah, and I would like to have something definitive in there rather than, open-ended, because being a taxpayer, I know about, temporary taxes.
We could put something in parentheses behind it, whatever year time frame that you, so for.
Not to exceed or?
Well, just for a limited time, and then you say the number, 2 to 3 years, 4 to 5 years.
In the survey?
Yeah, right after limited time, just put it in parentheses.
As part of the survey?
Yep,
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
but you guys tell me the numbers that you want included.
On that same question, I apologize if I'm not understanding it, but how do you get a not applicable to that question? Like, what would quantify somebody answering not applicable?
That's a great point. So I think because this is several versions of the survey, at one time, we were thinking that this survey would go to building owners and business owners.
Got it.
I believe that should be
Yeah,
removed.
that should be
That's
removed.
a good catch. Thanks, Peggy.
And number 10, I can't actually read that.
Because the word packet
Yeah.
covers up the words.
What exactly does that state?
Number 10.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
I support additional
It's additional, that's the roof line, lights along the roof line.
lights.
It's a question about the light.
Facing the buildings?
I support additional investment of roof line lights installed facing, the intent is from the river. Will there be also lights outlining the buildings?
Facing the river.
Yeah,
On the backside.
Okay, so that should be probably reworded to reflect that.
no, it does. If you get rid of the word packet underneath it, that's what it says. I don't know the exact verbiage, but it's asking a question of whether or not you support putting lights on the back of the buildings along the river.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So it relates to question 9 with the roofline lights are an important feature of downtown, agree, disagree? And then it's when the west side is complete, do you support putting lights on that side of on the back sides of the buildings facing the river?
Does the printed version still have packet page 6 in front of it, Peggy?
Yes, it does,
Does
Jay,
it?
I have it
Okay.
here, yeah.
So I don't know the exact wording, but that is the intent.
Let me see if I can find it in an email.
I remember reading it, and that's what it was asking.
Yeah, I know that's what it is, but I don't remember. Here we go. Number 10. Number 10 says, when the west side of downtown Riverwalk project is completed, I support additional investment of roofline lights along river-facing buildings. So you're missing the words along river, which are what are covered up.
I guess okay, I'd make a motion to go ahead with the survey, but I would like to make sure that we add a comment section.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is, I believe, the 7th Avenue, right? Yeah. Just a little side note to the property owners, we'll start working, once we get these results back, so I'll have Jess start this right away. I'm not sure of the time frame that they give. I'm guessing a few weeks, and then they'll need some time to parse the data out, and then from that, they'll create the survey for the businesses, and then we'll bring that back for a review from everybody here.
Is this
No.
going out by mail, Mike, or via email?
They're going to do a card, and I think it's going to then be a link. We'll probably do emails for the people we have emails for. We don't have a lot of the emails.
All building owners will receive a postcard directing them to an online survey.
Okay. Sidewalk discussion. I don't know if this is Larry or Jay or both.
I asked Jay if it'd be possible when they do the reconstruction of 7th Avenue, if they're going to replace sidewalks, I would prefer to have the pavers along 7th Avenue and that transition into 33, just plain concrete rather than pavers. And Jay told me that there's a city ordinance that says everything in the bid district has to be, all the sidewalks have to be done with pavers. And my point is, the sidewalk leading up to that area is concrete, and all the way up 7th Avenue is concrete. So I don't know if there has to be a waiver to do that, but if they do it, I would prefer to have just plain, window pane concrete, or just plain concrete, rather than pavers. It's a real nuisance for snow removal, and it's a trip issue for patients going into practice. So that's all I have to say.
So I checked with Max as to what the 7th Avenue plan was for that section of sidewalk. And if you have your packet online, it's well, second last page. And there's a arrow to the sidewalk in question. And that sidewalk is currently pavers, and they will be torn up, is my understanding, or at least disturbed at some level. And Max shared with me that the current contract with our contractor, Vinton, is to replace those with sidewalk. And so, or I'm sorry, with pavers, put the pavers back in. And that's when he also mentioned that resolution that's on file that says sidewalks in the downtown shall be pavers. And we've had this conversation several times over some smaller areas of sidewalk that have been replaced. I think of the area by Sal's and Pocket Park, and across the street of Old Settlers Park, which went into gray concrete. It also fits in well with the conversation that the transportation group is having regarding the future of the Main Street reconstruction. What should sidewalks look like? And I just asked to put it on the agenda to have this timely conversation. They're starting work this morning out there on 7th. And if we need to go to council with some kind of a recommendation other than putting the pavers back, we certainly are prepared to do so if that's the recommendation of the bid board.
I guess my only question, I don't have a problem with it, but I know there's been discussion of what is going to go in the rest of Main Street. And the recommendation up to this point at the last meeting was to do the stamped. And I know it's a 50-50 chance of which direction we're going to go, but I personally would want to make sure that whatever goes in there is kind of what we're leaning towards recommending to council for the final design, so that there is that continuity. And it's going to be a guess, but I don't think we're going to end up with just plain concrete through the rest of Main Street. So that would be my only conversation that I think we need to have. I know Larry doesn't want stamped, but I think we're leaning towards stamped as far as the recommendation. And I guess it also, sorry to say, Larry, but it could be a good test point to see how it looks and how it does with shoveling snow.
Well, my point is it isn't really exactly aesthetically part of the downtown thoroughfare. It's really part of the 33 7th Avenue intersection. So, since the rest of 7th Avenue is plain concrete, I see no reason why this shouldn't also be. It's really not part of Main Street. When we start curling around the circle up there, then I think that's a whole different ballgame.
Well, aren't we talking about the curl up on top?
No, we're talking about the sidewalk from the front of my office down to the part that's actually stamped right now. And if you want to see what stamped concrete looks like, you can go down there and take a look at it.
So if I'm looking at this drawing. where you
It's
have-
actually the gray sidewalk that runs down to where it's,
So you have gray, you come and you have the gray section.
have to.
Like, right, he's looking at this. Larry, you're talking about this
Yeah.
up here, where it says the word.
Yeah, you have to
sidewalk.
lower that screen a little bit, I think, the other way.
The other way, Mike. There.
Oh, okay, I was looking at this
No.
part here.
Yeah, it's that
Okay,
part up there.
so we're talking this part.
Right.
That's what we're talking about. It's not really part
All
of
right,
Main
that's
Street.
it, yeah, okay.
So,
Now I better understand what we're talking about.
Do you have any comment?
Any questions, thoughts people have? I still would like to use it as a test plot.
well, we can do that in front of your place
It's all right.
when the time comes.
Doug, do you have any thoughts?
I would agree with Larry. I would say that whole area is going to be standard concrete. To mix in a stamped in that area, I don't think it would look very well.
No, I agree now that I see exactly where it is. I thought it was farther down in the circle he was talking about. So,
Okay.
yeah, I don't disagree with that.
And why is this a decision by the bid?
Because it's part of Jay's basically looking for the bid to give their blessings to it before he takes it to council. So if the council comes back and says, what does the bid think? We're ahead of the curve and it's already done.
Recommendation, Peggy, think of it as that versus a
Okay. And
absolute authority.
Doug, your recommendation is to go with the concrete?
And this area in particular, I don't know how that works with a resolution change. If someone was to replace their sidewalk downtown, if the resolution changes, I don't know if there's got to be more detail to that they don't put the brick pavers back. Those are details I don't know.
It's a really bigger picture conversation with the eye to 2023. The transportation recommendation, the bid board recommendation, the actual design. I think, and I'm not speaking out of school, but the early conversation from the transportation group is to go away from the brick pavers. So if there's a strong push to counter that at some point from my group or entities that we've not heard from yet, that would be to be determined. But at this point, it seems like there's some level of support for gray concrete of some sort, whether it's stamped gray concrete. And Doug, just to be clear, that's when Mike is referring to stamped, at this point, he's talking about stamped gray concrete, not the pigmented stuff that we have in some places.
Well, I guess I'm more apt to go with the guy who does it on a daily basis and knows what he's doing, so I guess I would follow his recommendation. That's my own personal opinion.
So someone want to make a motion and say that we want to recommend to council to allow this to go to gray concrete instead of pavers?
Well, I would certainly move to do that.
I think there'd be a conflict of interest there, though. Maybe not, I don't know. That's up to you.
Can I second it?
I'll make a motion that on this sidewalk on 7th Avenue that we go with the gray concrete.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yeah. What is the plan with the pavers then, when you remove them?
Well, I think that's the thing that is being brought up, is this does create a slippery slope in some respects. Because someone could then come back and say, well, I want to put concrete in front of my building, and now we got a big mess before 2023, so. Because you're setting a precedent of allowing it to happen, but because it's along 7th Avenue and that's all being redone, that may be kind of a stopgap.
I'm guessing they can word a resolution.
Yeah, I'll jump in with, I don't think there's a big mess. To answer Tony's specific question, I'll defer to Doug, but we have had sections of concrete go in with permission on Main Street. I mentioned the two big public area ones that the city chose to go with. There are a couple of other small pocket place ones that have just happened with, again, permission. And as permission's been granted, the building owners have been informed that once a decision's made for whatever is going in, they stand to lose. And I guess this is my counter to, I don't think it's going to be a big mess, is they stand to lose what they just put in to go with what's been decided for the entire reconstruction area. And so the building owner would have to know that up front, that if they put in purple concrete and receive permission to do so, stamped, that once a decision has been made to go with gray stamped brick concrete or portrait concrete throughout the Main Street, that those would have to be removed at that time, and the ultimate decided one would go in throughout all of downtown. What's going to happen with them, Doug? I know you saved them now because you need to patch.
Yeah, our current inventory doesn't exist, so we don't have any extra bricks. We have some that are from the Riverwalk side, which are a little different design. They don't fit in the bricks through the downtown area. But I think to answer your question is, we'll try to save those. The plan is 2023 reconstruction. We may not need them, but we'll try to save them when they pull them out in this section here for utility work or trip hazards, deteriorated brick areas, things like that, so.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the last item is bike racks at Art Cycle. If anybody's driven by there, it's just an update to say that they've been put in. They're very happy, and I think they look good where they're at. Thanks to city staff for figuring out how to get them in. And the last item is any agenda items for the next meeting. As always, you can email Jess or email myself, and we can add things to the agenda and get it on for the next meeting. And if there's nothing, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thanks, everybody.